Hello Malaysians, welcome back to my channel. Thank you very much. For today's topic, I'm not going to comment on any recent news item, but I just want to give a summary of what I have written quite recently. And the title of today's chat is about 5 harsh realities that Malaysians must face in the GE16 and perhaps 20 years after that. Now, in our country, there are some realities that we have to live with. I mean, in our life, there are a lot of realities that we have to live with. Sometimes we have certain handicap, sometimes we have certain advantage, sometimes we have certain income that we can try to overcome. But there are many realities that we have to live with and live along with, and also perhaps slowly try to overcome. But there are also those realities that we cannot overcome, and we need to accept that. And then how do we deal with it is all the difference between having the reality as a problem or having the reality as an opportunity, or in fact the reality can also be something that teaches us about ourselves. Now, in Malaysia, there are 5 realities that we have to come to grip with. It's no sense blaming people. I mean, I don't really go around blaming history, blaming this person or that person. Everybody does things, and history happens, and it's best that we look at the reality and then we say, okay, so how do we handle this? And so these are the realities that I'm sorry to say, but upon reflection, there is nothing to be sorry about in a sense, because it just happens. And as I said, blaming and getting angry over it is not really something a positive or constructive. The first is that the reality about the Malay narrative, about ketuanan Melayu, Malay supremacy, about the idea that Malays deserve more because this is their birthplace, or their that they were here first, and things like that, and that Malays having a history of the Sultan, and also other aspects of social, anthropological aspects. Therefore, the idea that Malays first and Malaysia second or third, that is something that's not going to change. Now, this started a long time ago with UMNO trying to help the Malays achieve a certain economic balance, and I think a lot of it has happened, and there is already that balance there in what we call the new economic policy. But then it went on and on and on and on, and however you argue it, it has been done. All right. If you were to ask me, I think I can stand with any other non-Malays. But many Malays, whether they are professors or educated, and whether they are definitely less educated, will say that they will not want to lose this idea of Malay supremacy that has been propagated by one political party, as well as one prime minister particularly. So this is where we are, and I have tried my very best to write about it and to explain things so that the Malays can have a more progressive view. But I have been then blamed to be a person who is secretly working with the Chinese, or secretly working with the DAP, because I was a DAP member, therefore I am the DAP mouth, and the DAP has fed me this narrative of Malaysia, that sort of thing. Of course, all of those things are not true. I have been what I have. I think Siddiq Fadzil, the father of our Minister of Education, Fadlina, has said that he is ashamed, he is embarrassed to be considered that he is less than any of the non-Malays. But that kind of attitude, where are you going to find it? And I found it in several other Malays, but there's not that many. And I have asked these Malays to come together, even just to gather 10 people, 10 Malays, to come and actually try to educate the Malays through webinars and through podcasts and all this. And I have suggested, but there is none that would commit to this agenda. Now, I have been writing for 20 years, and I would like to say that perhaps I am the most noted Malay in terms of talking about this thing. And yet, there are no public institutions like universities wanting to establish a kind of a research center or a center where Malays can be re-educated to be more progressive in their thinking. Nobody has come forth. There is nobody also from the corporate world that comes say, hey, Prof. Tajuddin, come and let us do something for the Malays so that they don't really feel like they need the tongkat and things like that. Nobody came. Nobody called, nobody offered, nothing. So I've tried my best, and I have to come to the conclusion that the Malays will not change. Now, unless the non-Malays start having children and overcome the demography of the Malays, then again, this thing is not going to change. So that's the very harsh reality. I tried my best to change the Malays, and I have not been successful. So here we have to come to grips with this aspect. Now, the second thing, or the second harsh reality, is about Islam. Islam is becoming more and more prominent. I mean, it is now overcoming the narrative of the Malay supremacy to be Islamic supremacy. Now, how did this come about? This is something that is or has happened to the Malay community, and we could trace it back to the Islamic reform movement of the 70s. Now, that's all I can say about it, because I was part of the Islamic reform movement. Now, what is the Islamic reform movement? The Islamic reform movement, I assume, because I was never a member of any of the Islamic reform movement, except that I was an active participant, whether in the United States, where I was studying 6 years, and also in Malaysia. There were 4 groups that was propagating it. Number one is ABIM, Angkatan Belia Islam Malaysia, and Anwar Ibrahim was part of the group. The other one is Ikram, which was Jemaah Islam Malaysia, and before that some sort of other name, which is uncertain, a very interesting sort of name. Okay, and it is said to have been given birth in the United Kingdom. In the United States, there was the Malaysian Islamic Study Group, which I was again participant with, but never a member of. And my introduction to political Islam and Islamic reform movement was in the United States, and then carried over when I was in University Technology Malaysia. I was part of the Usrah group, or the cell group, in the sense of learning about Islam with the Jemaah Islam Malaysia, which is now called Ikram. So there was also another group called the Al-Arkam. Now, the Al-Arkam was a very interesting movement by Ustaz Ash'ari, and it grew in terms of culture with its halal product. That was very good and also very honest in their business dealing. Many non-Malays love to deal with them, and also they were propagating the idea of Sufism. And they were the one that took over the culture of nasheed, or religious songs. At one time, the Nada Murni took away took the airwaves, and everywhere you would hear people putting on this nasheed. So they popularized the nasheed, the jubah dress, and a lot of other things in Islam. They were very big until they were outlawed by the Malaysian government, seemingly that they were propagating a wrongful Islam. Why? Because the reader was trying to show that he was the Messiah, or the coming Messiah of Islam. So they were taken out, but but they became something like the GISBH later on, and also other groups that actually carried on with a different name. So that was another group. And then there was the Tabligh group. The Tabligh group consists of people from all walks of life. I was also participant in the Tabligh group. I was never participant in the Al-Arkam group. And they basically have the creed of missionary Islam, as well as the idea of giving contributions to what they call strengthening the brotherhood of Islam. They are not a political movement, and but they are a very strong force in Malaysia, of which all of this, not so much Parti Islam Malaysia. I don't really think that Parti Islam Malaysia has a great effect in the 70s, but these four groups have a great effect, and they changed the whole Malay society, totally changed. When Anwar Ibrahim came into UMNO, he changed it with the tudung, the beard, with all this, and the idea of Islamic words being bandied around. And then there was also the setting up the International Islamic University to actually create a progressive Islamic ideal. Now, the thought then was that if Muslims, which were mainly Malays, had this Islamic ideal, then number one, they will be honest in their work, no corruption. Then they will also respect other people, because the Prophet Muhammad taught Muslim to respect other people, no extremism. They are moderate, they are also progressive in thinking. You can think about art, you can think about science, you can think about all things. So those are the wonderful things about the Islamic reform movement. Now, with the Islamic reform movement, then came a change in society. And of course, the society changed in terms of rituals and dress codes, with the tudung, but then the values, they were not there yet. Values of humanity, values of human brotherhood, values of respect for others, it was not there. And with the jailing of Anwar Ibrahim for many years, the Islamic movement stopped propagating this idea of progressive thinking, and was stagnated to the release of Anwar Ibrahim. So that's the reality. And the children of all these people now are putting their children in religious schools. There are so many religious schools that came out, and most adult Muslims now have this idea of Islam, which is what I call conservative. There were those also of my generation who were not very Islamic inclined, but then when they retire, and now they are a group of retirees of national economic policy, those who have made their money, and they turn to religion. So this is the reality. Religion is going to be there, and it will be used by a certain political party to enhance its issue. And so the battle of who is more Islamic is going to be a natural political cause. And so if someone were to donate 100 million ringgit to the Gaza, to Gaza or to the Palestine, that would be seen as a very good thing in the Muslim mind. And if someone were to boycott Zionist-related business like McDonald's, that would also again create the idea of a jihad in Islam, and this narrative is going to go on and on. So that's the harsh reality. It's not going to be changed. It's no use there's one Malay lady or Malay man saying, I don't want Islam in politics. It's already too late. Like it or not, it's already embedded, and it's going to be weaponized, and it's going to be enhanced, and it's going to be used, and that's about it. So shouting that you cannot separate Islam and politics, and that you cannot do things like donating 100 million ringgit to Palestine, that doesn't exist anymore. That is now the present narrative. I'm not trying to agree with it. I basically don't see whether I should agree or not. Palestine certainly requires some help. Who's going to help? And if you were to say help, then you have to give something, so that other countries can also give something else. Now, this is the reality, and so the competition about who's more Islamic is going to be there all the time. That's number two. Now, the harsh reality number three is that the civil servants are mostly Malays. So unless the non-Malays start putting their children in the civil service and the security forces of the police and the military, well, what do you think is going to happen? The Malay narrative and the Islamic narratives that is already there and going to be more emboldened will be part of that civil servant mindset. So if it is skewed towards this race and also this religious faith, there's nothing that can be done about it, as I said, unless and until non-Malays have more children to change demography, or that the 1 million Malaysians that went abroad, 2 million or whatever, comes back to vote. Every single vote must be counted. Then there is nothing that can be changed. And even if some political parties with a mixed race like PKR and DAP coming in, they still will have to have the civil servant that is mostly Malays and Muslim. So how do we change that? If we do not accept that, no use crying, they must be professional, they must be professional, they must be impartial, what's the point? Humans will be humans, okay? So unless you can put your money where your mouth is, meaning your children, having more children and putting them in the civil service, then you need to face the harsh reality. Number four, from now onwards, a mixed government from the general election will be a great possibility, unless you want an all-Malay government. If Barisan Nasional or UMNO goes into with PAS and also Bersatu, then they will be a single race government. Of course, there will probably be a smattering of non-Malays here and there, but that will be the reality, that is going to be a mixed government. Mixed government meaning those who may not be to your liking, but then they may be the lesser of two evils, something like that. So with a mixed government, you have a slower progress. Unless you want a single government of a single race, then there will be no progress. There will be worse in many ways. But with a mixed government, then there can be a possibility of change, but then it will take quite amount of time. Now, finally, the harsh reality is that Malaysians must have patience, and they must have understanding, and they must have strategy. Now, a lot of Malaysians say, I already have patience, Prof, for 60 years. And these people, I pity them because they are already old, and they say that they are still waiting to change. But then they didn't realize that they were also part of the issue in the first place. Some say, how were they part of the issue? Well, when Anwar was in prison, the Barisan Nasional government was propped up by the non-Malays. So the non-Malays also did not care about their children having Malay friends, nor did they care whether they're more socially inclined, philosophy inclined, but no technology, doctors, lawyers, engineers, and therefore that's what they became. And so they also looking at more money, wealth, and so they went away. There's less 1.5 million perhaps. Now who are you going to blame? You say, well, of course we have to blame the Malays and the government. No, you need to look at you yourself have the ability. I have a friend who was working in Singapore for very good pay, but he said he came back to Malaysia because he wants to contribute, and he is now a leader of one of the private university. So the choice was yours, but then how did you use it? And we need to have Malaysians to understand, let's say, the different kinds of Islam, so that you can understand which Islam is more progressive, which one is more conservative. You cannot lump Islam in a single bowl. That's not possible. If you did that, and then your response will be totally wrong in many ways. And one of the ways is not to respond. Let's say there is an issue recently about Terengganu giving fines for people who do not pray Friday prayers now. Even I find that incredible, but then don't say it. Don't put out in the Facebook and things like that. You're going to create more trouble between Muslims and non-Muslim. I'm not saying that you cannot practice freedom of expression or freedom of speech or in a democracy, but you need to be smart in that regard. So a lot of things the Malaysians or non-Malays particularly have to have a different strategy, and this strategy can be thought of if we accept that the Malays will not change, that Islam is going to be more emboldened, and that civil service is going to be mostly Malays, and that it's going to be a mixed government. So with these four things, harsh realities, then if we can accept that, then we can have a strategy, and it's not a problem of having a strategy. I'm trained in architecture. We have a problem, and if the lecturer or the studio master does not see you having 10 different solutions, then you're not thinking. Okay, so but to have the strategy, you need to accept the problem. To talk and blame about the problem and to reminisce or to start the blame game, that's not going to be very helpful at all. So those are the five realities about the Malays not changing, about Islam getting more and more, and about the civil servants or the civil service being dominantly of one particular race, and having a mixed government is going to cause a slow progress, but there will be progress, unless you want a single race government, which will be no progress at all. And the ball is still in our park. We can still play it how we want to play it, but we need to accept those realities and then sit down together and propose a strategy. Now we'll talk about this strategy, but of course many Malaysians will not like this strategy because they still like to blame, okay, and they still think that it's okay to have a political party come in and change everything. It's not going to happen. There is no such thing as flipping on a switch and flipping it on and off just like that. It's not going to happen. Okay, if you have a mixed government that is wanting to change, like what I think we are having now, it's going to be slow, and it's going to still play to the gallery of Malays and Muslim. That is the reality. Accept it and let's move on. I'm not trying to propagate this Malayness or Islamicness. You read my writing. I've been trying, and I have not been accepted by the Malay and the Muslim. So that shows my sincerity, and I hope that you will look at it very seriously, because change requires all of us. Every single one who calls themselves Malaysians, whether they are overseas, they must come and play a role, and the civil service must have a multicultural nature. Even though it's like 30% non-Malays, it's still going to be very impactful. But without that, by saying no, they're not going to be, leaders and naik pangkat. I mean, then the thing will never end. Okay, so good luck to us all. Accept the reality or don't accept it. The choice is yours. Thank you. Hello everyone, my name is Professor Dr. Muhammad Tajuddin, and I have written a book called Not the Islam I Know. This book is a compilation of many of my writings over the past 15 years with regard to what is called Islamic issues in the country. And the main intention of the book is actually to show that many of the practices, perspectives, values, and actions of most Muslims may not be the same, or is usually not the same as the teachings represented by the tradition of the Prophet Muhammad through the Hadith and the Quran, from my own perspective of understanding it. Now, I hope you would be able to understand Islam a bit better, so that you would differentiate between the practices of Muslims in their political and social context with regards to the differences to the actual teachings of the Prophet Muhammad itself.